Bienvenidos a esta reunión de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de San Mateo-Foster City. Tenemos un intérprete para los participantes que necesitan traducción al español. Para escuchar la junta en español, presione el icono del mundo en su pantalla. Muchas gracias.
Related to non-agenda topics. Joe can jump into audience. We'll take public action.
Thank you, President Watkins. Random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hand. The speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time is expired, we will move to the next speaker. Speaker Karina Vela. One moment. Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here because I attended a fifth grade meeting at Fiesta Gardens this
Can you-
Tuesday.
Can you have her stop?
And I'm here because I'm concerned about what is going to happen with the immersion program for next year's sixth graders. Last year, a group of about 10 parents, or maybe less,
Okay.
7 parents and myself, had the opportunity to speak with Jeanette and
I'm sorry, Karina,
Superintendent. Hello?
we're having a technical problem with the audio in the boardroom. I'm gonna pause the time. I'm gonna restart the time, actually. Give me one moment.
Okay,
Apologies.
that's okay.
Okay, Karina, could you please try again?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I'm going to start. So my name is Karina Bella. I'm a parent at Fiesta Gardens. I have a fourth, fifth, and an incoming kindergartner in 2 years. I'm really happy to be part of the community there. And last year we had the opportunity to meet with Superintendent um, Ochoa and the former principal around planning what is going to happen with our present fifth grade class for the 24-25 school year. The reason why we decided that we wanted to meet is because our school is becoming a community school, and there's talks right now about our campus moving for the 25-26 school year. Myself and about 7 to 10 other parents wanted to know if there was any possibility that that the present fifth grade class could also be included in becoming part of the K-8 school. So we had an opportunity to meet, and we were told and promised that there would be definitely a good chance that our class would be included in this program in a few years. And my concern was that I thought I was attending a like an announcement meeting, and the meeting kind of backpedaled all of the work and the communication that had been initiated. And I understand that a lot of the work that needs to be done is around surveying parents, but I just hope that there's some more attention and foresight going forward, putting attention to how these 60 immersion families are going to be affected. And I, along with all the other parents I know, are very committed to supporting the school district and anybody um, who is interested in making a strong academic program for these immersion students. I'm a teacher, and I know that the data shows that students going from K-8 have the most benefits from this program. And being that so many of our students are students of color, immigrant families, I think it's really important that we keep in mind all of this work around equity that the district's doing is going to be very apparent here. And I look forward to seeing some progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Rachel Roach. Please go ahead.
And I don't want to repeat too much of what Karina just shared, but I do share the same concerns. A huge concern of mine is that the communication with the community is not clear. The meeting that we had on Tuesday, there were a lot of fifth grade parents in the meeting that probably had no idea about the potential for a sixth grade class at Fiesta Gardens next year. And the survey we were given was very, very brief and lacked any background in any detail. And so a huge concern is that if the decision as to whether or not we have a sixth grade class at Fiesta Gardens next year is contingent on the data from that survey, which is lacking in many ways, the data is going to be skewed. And if that data is driving the decision, that is problematic. So I think the messaging needs to be very clear to parents so they know what they are responding to. There has also been, and rightfully so, a lot of meetings held in regards to community schools, but I think there needs to be also more focus on the students that we currently have and how are they being served and what are their needs. So like Karina, I have multiple kids in Fiesta Gardens and I absolutely love the school and love the community. And I'm very concerned that there is no real concrete plan for this potential sixth grade class next year. And we're already practically in October. And, you know, what is the plan? What is our goal? I am a parent that was involved in a few different meetings last year. And the feedback that we received was, we're going to need your input. We're going to need your help. We're going to need you to, you know, to be a part of this. So I would like to know, what can we do? Because we are all ready and willing and committed to do that, but we don't know how we can help. So I would like more information on that. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Next speaker is Karen Thistlethwaite.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm also a Fiesta mom. I have a fifth grader and a third grader. I'd like to express appreciation for the initiative of Directora Ramirez. Last year, she met with a group of us, as you have heard. And not only did she do that, she also brought in Superintendent Ochoa to really convey to us the importance of the K-8 model and how that is best benefited with a smooth transition. So some things not only that were told to us, but were sort of, I would say, even pledged to us, was that there would be a way for the current fifth grade class to stay on campus and travel with the rest of the school to the College Park location. We were shown drawings of the mock-ups of what it could look like, and we're asked to invest our time and energy and effort into creating several documents, which the parents did, and shared that with administration. We were also told that there would be a budgeted item for a TOSA, a teacher of special assignment, to help, as did the programs that also transferred from 5th to K-8, so that this year, especially after winter break, there would be a 6th grade TOSA to think about what that transition looks like and how we can implement that. And then that TOSA would stay with the school to help with the new 7th grade year, the new 8th grade year, and really get us started. So these were things that, again, we were asked to think about in the spring, and we're told that these would already be in place now. So the meeting that we had yesterday surprised a lot of us, and that now the question is back on the table of if this is happening, when we were told before that this was an integral part of our children's learning and a service that the district was committed to providing. So at this particular point, I would love for there to be another meeting with our current director who is not up to speed on what is happening, understandably so, that is new. But those documents, I feel like there's a step being missed in not transferring that information over and not sharing those things with the people who really need to hear them. So I express both appreciation for the work that has been done, and I would ask that that work be either respected or at least considered in what's happening moving forward. We are available to meet, and I would highly encourage those conversations to happen before further misunderstandings occur. Thank you.
Thank you, President Watkins. There are no other public commenters at this time.
Thank you. Can you hear me through Zoom? Because I know when I was speaking through Zoom before, people, okay, Superintendent Ochoa, you can hear me. Okay, perfect. Okay, public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. We will move on to Foundation Committee and PTA Council reports. So we'll start with the board. Any foundation or committee reports? I will just give one on behalf of the Ed Foundation, which is for the board, that the Ed Foundation is finalizing their new sponsorship tier recognitions and has added school board meeting mention and photo op with the school board for corporate sponsorships at the 25,000 and 10,000 tiers, and small business sponsors at the 2,500 tier. So just to give you all a heads up, that will be in some photos coming up. Do we have anyone, Joe, from the Ed Foundation, PTA Council on to give any updates? Getting a bit of an echo in here, just FYI, when I talk. Oh, it's coming from the TV, maybe? Okay, we'll move on then to SMETA, CSEA, and SMFCAA updates. Kathy, you want to start?
Go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone. My statement's going to be pretty short today. We look forward to, SMETA looks forward to opening our classroom wellness grants in October. This allows for special projects and classroom enhancements that better our classroom communities and student experiences around the district. We really appreciate this being matched by the Ed Foundation, so shout out to them for sure. We look forward to being able to give some deserving people some money later on. We also believe that our new educators deserve as much training as possible. That's why we're really happy to be able to support up to 20 new educators. They're free admission to CTA's new educator weekend that's coming up in November. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to all of our amazing site representatives. Each site has somewhere between 1 and 5 representatives, new and returning. We met back in person on last week, and we got some amazing input, 7 charts worth of input about things that are happening within our district and our respective school sites. They represent the voices of hundreds of members, and it's a reminder that our collective voice is going to be able to counteract some of the spin that we hear every day. Our reps give generously of their time. They show high integrity. They don't just attend meetings, but they support their sites and teachers, psychologists, counselors, etc., to make sure that everybody feels safe and supported, and they're to be applauded and respected for the amazing work they do every day. I know that everyone And Speed and Beyond is looking forward to our October break, hopefully free of district suggested trainings, so that we can have that relaxation that we need and deserve and come back relaxed and rejuvenated to our classrooms the following week, ready to meet our students' needs and continuing the fight for the needs of all of our sites, our schools, our communities, and our members. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. I hope everyone has a great break as well. CSCA, is Alicia on, Joe?
I do see her. I'm trying to enable her mic. Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Yay. Can you hear me? Okay, yay. Okay, so my apologies for missing the last meeting. Can you hear me? Yeah,
No,
Diego, I see you. Okay, so my apologies for missing the last meeting. I had a migraine and it took pretty much all I had to email Superintendent Ochoa to let him know that I probably wasn't going to make it. So I do apologize. We just met as a membership yesterday, and yes, that is a full month into the school year because that is how CSEA rolls. The only thing I really have to update you on is that some of our members have exercised their right to request a reclassification of their position. I believe most of them were mainly just because the job descriptions haven't been updated since way back in 1998. So a lot of the duties have changed since then. We look forward to working with the district committee on making whatever revisions are needed so that our members are working their proper contractual duties. Other than that, our board has decided, and I strongly agree, that we are going to share the wealth with some of the meetings that I attend because I'm being spread a little thin right now. So don't be surprised if someone else's face pops up next time or randomly throughout the year. You're going to meet some new people. And then one last thing, I don't see him there right now, but because I might not be at the next meeting, I just wanted to thank Trustee Chin for everything he has done for our students and members throughout the years. We wish you the best in your future endeavors, and that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Alicia, and we look forward to meeting other CSEA members at future meetings. Moving on.
And then our English learner snapshots. And then just overall sharing what kids are doing in class. Should I pause?
It's awkward.
How about now? Yeah. Better? Okay. And then for our school specifically, we have started our community school steering committee in anticipation of our upcoming larger community schools meetings that will happen starting in October. We want to thank our PTA, who've been really engaging families and staff with volunteers and family events. Recently, they hosted a movie night, and so a lot of our community got to see the new field that opened up at the beginning of the school year, and then the progress that has been happening with our multipurpose room.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lori Fukumoto. I'm the principal at North Shoreview Montessori School. I am so excited to be sharing what we're doing at our school and what's going on. So first of all, I wanted to just acknowledge Deputy Superintendent Gaffney and his team, our facilities team. Our playground is absolutely beautiful, and it continues to be. It's still in progress, but the energy and the enthusiasm that students show on the playground now, we went from kind of cracked blacktop with weeds kind of growing, and now it's this beautiful resurfaced playground. Our turf will be put in after our October break, and it's just becoming a lovely, beautiful school. So we're excited. I also wanted to acknowledge Superintendent Ochoa. I said this publicly before, but we feel really supported by our superintendent, ed services, of course, our board, with our Montessori program. And we are kind of transforming ourselves. We feel, I think, for the first time in a long time that Montessori is really, I mean, you're able to fully implement a Montessori program. And teachers are feeling like they can actually not be so worried about our district curriculum trying to match with Montessori for the first time in a long time. So teachers are feeling very empowered to teach with their Montessori tools and their philosophy. So thank you so much for supporting our program. And then thirdly, I just want to say that we are so excited. Our school is 75 years old this year. So we will be having some festivities at our school, and we will be happy to have you come and see what's going on at our school this year. So, you know, it's a perfect year that we're getting all kind of refurbished as well, because we get to show off how beautiful our school is. So thank you so much for all of your support.
Thank you both for being here and for the updates. All right, moving on to any board announcements.
Just a quick, just saying, I hope that everyone celebrated Yom Kippur this past Sunday, had a meaningful Yom Kippur, and tomorrow is the Mid-Autumn Festival, so happy Mid-Autumn Festival to everyone who celebrates that. That's it.
Great, thank you. Moving on to superintendent report. Superintendent Ochoa.
Thank you, President Watkins. Good evening, board, community. Many thanks to.
Okay. Got it. Sorry.
Good evening, President Watkins and board, members of the community and educators. Very pleased to be with you tonight. Unfortunately, not feeling well, so that explains my absence at the end of the dais. But tuning in here from my office on Zoom, so glad to be with you tonight. I want to call out a couple of departments and a couple of schools that have been working really, really hard to do some really special stuff for kids at their schools and kids district-wide. I want to really thank the technology department. I want to thank all of the CSEA and management employees who worked so hard over the last couple of months to assist with technology support and device access to our schools. So big thank you to everybody there. I also want to call out the work that's happening at a couple of our elementary schools. I was lucky to be able to be at both George Hall and at San Mateo Park over the last couple of days, meeting with families, teaching them some tools on using at-home learning support programs, and just being at those schools and talking to all these families about their experiences in our schools. Our students are being served very well, and we shouldn't at all be surprised. As you all know, our teachers are absolutely wonderful teachers, and our site leaders are some really great people. So I wanted to keep those remarks pretty brief tonight, and just give a big thank you to the educators that are doing this very important work every day in our schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa. All righty, we're going to move on to the proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form of simple act. There will be no discussion on this items prior to the general board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed to discuss from the consent. Superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Any recommended item is appropriate at this time, so we'll turn it over to the board first.
I have a couple items to pull. For A1 and for E1
For A1 and for
also.
Trustee Brooks or anything? I'm also gonna pull. Yes. For E8. Then the in-person audience. Joe, can we take public comment, please, on consent agenda?
Yes, thank you, President Watkins. Good evening. We'll be calling on speakers during public comment in random order. If you have a public comment, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Once you are called, you can, commenters that have called can dial *9 to raise their hand, and you will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time has expired, we'll move to the next speaker. Wait a moment. At this time, there are no public commenters.
The motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 4A1, 4E1, and 4E8.
Motion to approve.
You just specify those three.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 4A1, 4E1, and 4E8.
I'll second. Trustee Trent for the motion, Trustee Brooks for the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, great. 4A1. District staff, or do you want to make a comment?
I don't think I need anything yet, but I was gonna just, so I pulled this one last time, Trustee Watkins, you weren't here. This one I brought up last time because, this is on the list of, contracts under 45,000, but we had, what I brought up last time was that some of these, when you add them together, because they're under 45,000, but they're on here multiple times. So for example, on this one, you may see like first student, when you add them up, individually, they're under 45,000, but combined, they add up to more than 45,000. And so I wanted, I brought up last time that maybe we should consider that fact. And do we want to see more information on some of these, and how should we go about this going forward? And so I just wanted to kind of close the loop on this, and as a board, discuss this and see how do we want to move forward. On this one in particular, the only one that really jumped out at me is Delta Bay Construction, which I did reach out to Superintendent Ochoa, which then he followed up with me on to get more information. But I don't know if anyone else got a chance to dive into this one. I think first student, we talked about the contract, and other ones on here were more, I think just general. There weren't really any of them that added up to more than 45,000. So I don't know what you guys were thinking after our discussion last time, and how you would want to go forward with this in the future. But kind of wanted to see what you all think.
I was just, so thank you for your comments, Allison, and I'm aware of some of the circumstances for, again, you mentioned first student, we brought forward a contract to you last time for first student. And periodically there's things that come up which are under the overall umbrella of the contract, which are incremental costs. So this is our effort to bring those forward to the public and to you, so you're aware. Delta Bay Construction, what I can recall off the top of my head, there were some emergency projects that needed some, we needed some assistance with, and so combined, I understand what you're saying. but individually, these are permissive for us to move forward to address these. These were emergencies, as I recall, and these individual contractors, in addition to be licensed, bonded, and insured under the CUPCA umbrella. We can have a whole conversation about what CUPCA entails. It's permissive for the district to engage in these individual requests of these contractors. Oh, sorry, Dave. Oh, is that better? I'm hearing the echo, so that's why I was trying to move it away. So hopefully I answered, because my other thought too, though, is perhaps what we can do is when we're aware of when there are multiple items on here, I think it might be helpful for you and your colleagues for us to provide you, whenever possible, a summary. Because I see these come across my desk and I inquire like you inquire too, Allison. So why don't we as a team, we'll regroup, and I think that if we can provide you with, in conjunction with the list of items, a narrative that explains when we have multiple below 45K purchase orders with an individual vendor, if that would help. That was my thought in terms of trying to address this for you. That's something we might want to, I think we can certainly do, and I don't think it'll be very extensive, but at least it helps you understand why these are coming through in that manner. Does that make sense?
Be very helpful, especially when it's something that's not just a like a repetitive monthly charge where it's maybe a construction or a large purchase. That would be helpful.
You had an open session last time. I've had my team multiple occasions. So we're talking the same language. So I think, yeah, so let's try to do that. And next board meeting, we'll take a pass at providing that narrative in addition to just the numbers.
Thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve for A1.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor, for the motion. Trustee Trim for the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, great. Moving on to 4E1.
I don't need a report on this one. I'm just going to abstain due to a conflict of interest.
Great, thank you. We will need a motion on this one. I'll make a motion to approve. Trustee Trim for the second. All those in favor say aye. And we have one abstention. Trustee Proctor. Thank you. Okay, for E8, also no comment on this, just also going to abstain because I worked for Goldbook for a long time, and even though I have not been employed by them for many years, we'll just abstain anyways.
Make a motion to approve for E8.
Proctor for the motion, Trustee Brooks for the second. All those in favor say aye. And I will abstain. Agenda. Moving on to 5A. Over to you, Mr. Gaffney.
Share my screen. Good. So thank you so much. I want to first of all thank Blanca and her incredible team, and Blanca is an incredible resource for us as well, who spends a tremendous amount of time compiling this information for us. This 212-page document requires a tremendous amount of effort. So I'm so grateful for Blanca and the entire team for compiling this for us. This is a team effort to present this information to you, our board, and to our public. So tonight you're approving the unaudited actuals as presented, and we'll work with our auditors for them to complete the final audit. One of the things we did for you in this booklet, and for some years, it's been interesting to me how what I think is moving forward. Is that better? What we included in the booklet tonight was, in addition to the presentation that shows you the unaudited actuals adjacent to the adopted budget, we also provided you and the public a look back at what the estimated actuals were. Because I wanted to know, and I always want to know, what the difference is between what we estimated and what the final results were. Because that helps us when we're evaluating our organization, evaluating our processes, what we might need to focus on. So included in your booklet tonight for you and for the public is an added bonus to the 212 pages you got of looking at the estimated actuals we presented to you in May and June, and what the honor actuals were, and what the variances were in those particular categories. I just lost my microphone. Is that, no? Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me now? No, Joe? Well, you can try.
I'm trying to balance the room audio versus the Zoom audio. I've been getting complaints that are hard to hear.
I mean, when you're ready to roll, Joe.
I think you're good.
I just don't hear the echo anymore. So, so again, what we're saying is we provided this, the bonus of the additional information of looking at the estimated actuals and the unaudited actuals. And as we share with you in open session before, when we were looking at the budget, we anticipated, or I share with you, I anticipated there would be a variance between the estimated actuals and the unaudited actuals. And from doing this now my 25th year, every time I've done this exercise, there's always a variance. And there's really just a degree of what that variance is. And that's just for us from a process perspective, helps inform us what we need to focus on. And we integrate that information we get from the variances into our first in report technically. But for me, there's always this delay between, that time, we got to wait for the, first in report in December. It's a long time to wait. So we provided it to you tonight and to the public tonight, and we're going to be integrating that information into our first official report. So this is a glimpse at what the first interim is going to contain. And we share that with you. So it's informative for us. And I speculate what I thought that amount would be with my team, and I was fairly close. So, and maybe that's just from, I'm getting gray now. So I'm going to walk through a couple slides with you tonight too. This is just the budget cycle where we're at. We're in the unaudited actuals period now. These snapshots for you too, we're looking at the general fund. On the revenue side, what your unrestricted and restricted totals look like, total revenues and expenditures, your beginning fund balance and your ending fund balance, okay, on both the restricted and unrestricted side. On the unrestricted side, we came in at $38 million. Our estimated actuals was below that, and we had estimated it would be a higher amount, and for a variety of contributing factors, it actually ended up being a higher amount. The general fund revenues at closing as of June 30th. Again, this breaks it down into the different categories, the different sources of funding in each of these categories for restricted and unrestricted. And the totals, these are the same totals on both these slides. The expenditures category, we look at both unrestricted and restricted expenditures, and we show this total amount for the year for 22-23. And then we go into the general fund unaudited actuals, and we look at the components of the ending fund balance. And because our ending fund balance is higher, some of these categories, and I know that you had some discussion regarding the 1 month payroll value that was in the estimated actuals, and I shared with you at the time, I thought it would be higher after we close the books, and it is higher. So this is a snapshot of your components of your ending fund balance. And so you see that this value is increased for the 1 month payroll, and it's in what we provide in that narrative in the booklet. We show this to you as well and to the public. Okay. This also, it's a busy spreadsheet, but this is for us like minutia. This shows you each of these categories. It shows you the estimated, it shows you the unaudited, and it shows you the variances. Okay. That's just on the first slide. The second slide goes into that same information on the unrestricted side, and it shows you what the variances are primarily associated with. So I go through these in a lot of detail, but again, we provided you this in the spreadsheet format. I provided to you in the public in a narrative format, and we're going to be utilizing this as we go into the first interim report. Okay, so this provides you this recap of what those variants are in each of these categories. Okay, and then this last slide shows you the closing, the other funds, beginning balance, revenues, expenditures, and the ending balance, okay, for each of the other different funds. Okay, and then the final notes, it shows where we're at in the cycle. We work with our auditors. We have dates, I think, already scheduled for them to come out. We'll be working on posting the carryover amounts into the current year budget at first interim. And this assists us in evaluating not only the current year, but as we continue to work together and the public and our community on our multi-year forecasts, this information from the variance between the estimated actuals and the unaudited actuals were incorporated into the first, and we're also incorporated into our multi-year. It helps us plan, right, and understand what some of these variances are. Okay, so that's kind of a quick recap for you, and I'm sorry for the 212-page report, but we tried to give you the kitchen sink and as much information as we could, anticipating what your questions might be. Okay, and thank you again to Blanca and the team for that.
Bring it up to the board for any clarifying questions for Patrick and the team.
One quick question. What does it mean about when you say the staff will post the carryover amounts in the current year budget? Does that mean the budget that we're looking at, there will be more money? Okay.
Yep. Post and close the books to know the exact values, right?
Audience, public comment? In-person audience? Joe, if we could check the Zoom audience for public comment, please.
Yes, thank you, President Watkins.
Good evening. We'll be calling on speakers during public comment in random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hand. Speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time has expired, we will move to the next speaker.
We have one public comment at this time. Marcella McCullum.
Hello, thank you.
Good
Can you hear
evening.
me?
We'll be calling on speakers during public comment.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right
there's
here.
Can you hear me now, Shara?
Marcella, don't start yet.
Okay. I'm talking and I'm waiting.
Now we hear you. Go for it.
Okay, okay, great. Yeah, the audio has been a little bit of a challenge this meeting. I wanted to thank Patrick for the 2 different reports, the one that's a little bit easier to understand and then all the detail. And I'll make the same public comment I make every time we have a budget discussion, which is, and I think it's relevant to some of the comments that were made earlier today. There often is a question about how the resources are spent within the district. And Trustee Proctor commented on the $45,000 cap, and I know that there are legal ramifications, but something that I think would be very helpful for families to understand and to the community to understand is how some of the decisions are made, or maybe even just as clear as the 10-slide PowerPoint is, it really is only clear to people that have a decent understanding of what budgeting looks like. So if there is a way to share information where families can kind of get a really good sense of where the educational funds are going. And I don't know if that should be at a site-by-site level, or if that, and there is no way to kind of disaggregate that with the data that we have, even with the super detailed budget, or if it should happen at the district level. But I think it's really helpful to have a sense of where how the funding is being allocated. And also, as we look at this, kind of how schools are resourced, and I know this is partially Patrick and partially a bigger picture discussion, but how those decisions are made. So I think there is a lot of just kind of lack of understanding that potentially having the opportunity to have Patrick share some of the information, especially like the color commentary around the presentation, made it easier to understand. And so having that voice would be helpful in some format that doesn't require families to know to log into the board meeting on a particular day at a particular time. But if the focus could be on finances, I think that would be something that many families might find beneficial. Thank you.
Okay, President Watkins, there are no other public comments at this time.
For your comment, opening it up to the board for discussion.
just wanted to say thank you for to Patrick and your team for putting this all together. Those look like a lot of work. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your you know, kind of breaking it down a little bit so that we can understand what's happening big picture.
I also want to thank you and your team for this information. I know, I think it was a couple months ago when you initially brought this to us, and I think it was a very different picture because you bring, I know you showed the cycle of everything and you bring it at a different time and not everything's closed, and you kind of assured us that the picture would look different, and but the numbers, you know, are at a different point, and you know, it's hard to you know, when the numbers are what they are at that point in time and you say, no, it's going to be different at that time, you know, in a few months, it's hard for us sitting here to envision that. And so, you know, now things are different and I appreciate that. And I trusted you at the time, but you know, the numbers were what they were. So thank you for this. And I also really enjoyed looking at your spreadsheet. It made me smile because I do love spreadsheets and I love that it's color coded and it shows variances. And thank you for this. I could tell this is a lot of work, and so appreciate you and your team and everything you do. So thank you.
I also want to thank you for putting this report together and your team as well. I also would like to echo the comment about learning more about which resources are at which schools to kind of break down and identify kind of what we are allocating to each site. That will be very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, team, for all the work. Unlike Allison, I do not like spreadsheets, but I can appreciate and respect all of the effort that goes into them. So thank you. And I know we talk about budget and we talk about like, what are the ways that we can continue to make it more digestible, to continue to ensure that our community feels like they're in the loop. And so, you know, I think continuing to have that conversation and thinking about like, what does that actually look like this year, would be something I'd be very interested in ensuring that we follow up on. So maybe the next time that you come back with budget, you can let us know some options for what that could potentially look like. All right, this item is up for a vote.
For the budget.
For the motion, Trustee Brooks for the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Awesome. Moving on to 6A, public hearing for resolution. Chambliss.
President Watkins, if you could call the
Sure.
time and gavel it in.
You're here again this fall with a kind of an annual ritual where we, following the compliance with the Williams settlement, where we hold a public hearing to take public comments on how we are appropriating our instructional materials out to a school, to our schools. So as a first step, we would, as the staff, ask you to open the public hearing and take comments, and then we'll follow up from there.
Can President Watkins get in?
Okay. Opening the public hearing for resolution number 03-23-24, sufficiency of instructional materials at 6:24 p.m. Opening up for in person audience, public comment for the public hearing. Joe, if we can open up Zoom public comment.
Yes. Speakers for public comment in random order.
Just volume.
Please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hands, and speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time is expired, we will move to the next moment.
Yes.
President Watkins, can you hear me now?
Me?
Open to my mic, I apologize. There are no public comments at this time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Any board comment? All right. Closing the public hearing at 6:26 p.m. Moving on to 6B.
Could we humbly request a vote to approve that resolution? Just to confirm that both the county in an audit at Lead Elementary and our site leaders in audits at the other sites all confirm that materials.
Please did not see that this was up for a vote. Yes, this is up for a vote. Can I have a motion, please?
This resolution.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Great. All right. Now moving on to 6B, review of LPAC and recent reclassification results.
Just a moment, back to share some important data with you this evening. I'm going to, let me get to my presentation here for you. Okay, I think everybody can see that. Again, we are here this evening. I'm here this evening to share with you the good work of our multilingual services team led by Leda Barrera Cruz and our assessment team led by Kyla Jimenez. We're going to look a little bit at our LPAC data. You may recall that we shared LPAC data with you in the spring. That was sort of fresh off the assessment. And at that point, we only had 3rd grade through 8th grade LPAC data. So we're back tonight to kind of give you, to add the K2 data and to kind of give you the broader picture, and then update you on where we are in our reclassification work. So just as we head into that discussion, I just want to remind folks that obviously all of this is tied to and being driven by our strategic plan. And several of the actions that we're engaged with that speak to this data, both the LPAC data and the reclassification data, include the family and community engagement we're doing around reclassification itself. It requires engagement, but also the follow-up with families of students who actually do not reclassify. We have what's called our L snapshot, which is a tool that sites use to support communication with families. We also have this year, particularly our kindergarten through 3rd grade language and literacy focus. You'll recall last year was a K2 focus primarily on foundational literacy, and we've expanded that work and are now integrating more deliberately our language work in support of our multilingual students. There's a variety of improvements in our data tracking and reporting through ARIES, Elevation, and Illuminate. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the reclassification criteria, which has been updated and we think is part of the reason we're actually beginning to reclassify so many more students. So those are just sort of 4 areas of work that we recommend folks sort of keep in mind as we're talking. So to start first with the LPAC, just remind ourselves that this is a California assessment that's used to assess TK through 12th grade, obviously at our district, TK through 8th, students who are identified as English learners in their use of academic and conversational English. It is a combination of one-to-one testing as well as group testing. It's all one-to-one at kindergarten through second grade, and it's more decidedly group testing in third through eighth. And you can see the period of time that we did that testing last spring. Here's just a little bit of information on who takes the LPAC and, for example, the fact that Laurel has the greatest number of English learners, as indicated in the top chart, and the distribution of English learners across the years or grade levels, and also the languages that are spoken that are the primary home language that result in students being identified as English learners. Again, just some more details on the 4 domains that are assessed. And as I mentioned, how students are actually assessed across the grade. So as noted there, there's really a combination of oral language and written language, and you can see the 4 domains that are captured there. There's a heavier weighting of oral language assessment in the earlier grades of kindergarten through second grade. In third through eighth grade, there's more of a balance between oral and written. And you can see here in the slide presented that you can see students are scored on level 1, level 2, 3, and 4. Obviously, the goal is to get students to level 4. You can see that distribution for oral and written language. And then for K2 overall, which again was the data we did not have for you last spring, and for K8 overall. Then here is the data distributed across the different grade levels. And again, we're using that level 1 through 4. And this is last spring's performance, kindergarten through eighth grade. And then of course, the last bar is overall. Give you a minute just to take a look at that. And then we had a good discussion at the board study session about the data that we're looking at. And one of the things the board mentioned is a desire to see more what we'd call matched cohort data of how, 1 year into the next, how are students doing? And in the California dashboard, there's actually embedded that kind of matched cohort indicator, and we call it the English language learner progress indicator. And it's really looking at how students from 1 year to the next are moving up ideally in scoring from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And here you'll see this is distributed to the right. You'll see first through eighth grade students. So now this indicates 2 years of data. And what is the percentage of students that increased 1 level? That's call it purple. What are the percentage of students who maintained a level 4? Because that's considered a high level of performance. That's in the kind of the dark blue. And then in the teal blue, what's the percentage of students who maintained? And in the pink color, what is the students who decreased 1 level? So I'm going to move actually to the next slide because I realize it's a little hard to see those percentages. This is a kind of a bigger display of that data. And you'll see also to the far left, we've done an overall for 2022, what was the 2-year growth. So it was basically 21 to 22. And then for the bar that's 23, you're seeing what was the growth from 22 to 2023. And so, some obvious questions come up. We don't have the same level of percentage of students who increased a level or maintained a level 4. We're obviously looking closely at what's the data behind that. We have brought up before that the large number of students that we reclassified last year has impacted that cohort. And so, one of the benefits of reclassifying a lot of students is that the students who remain as English learners are true English learners and need the support. And so that's some of the variance that you might see from one year to the next. We're also digging in, really trying to understand second grade. That's an unusually high percentage of decrease. So that's an important point that we're asking ourselves about. But you can see in some places, for example, really importantly, as we get into our upper grades, we want to be seeing, 4th through 8th. We want to see, very little percentage of sliding backwards, of course, and a much larger percentage of students increasing a level. So, so that is our system getting traction and supporting students to accelerate their development of English language. Okay. Then turning to the question of reclassification that we hinted at, there's a couple of important things that we want to remind you of and emphasize here. One is that we have done some work in 2 different subcommittees on revising the reclassification criteria, and I'm going to look at that in a little more detail in just a second. But then the third thing is that we actually used to do reclassification largely at one time, which was really over the summer into the fall. Now we actually do it multiple times, really basically after each grading period. So the summertime we would think of as the reclassification that occurs after the last quarter of the prior year. We'll do another round of reclassification after the first quarter this year, and another round after the, first trimester, and another round after the second trimester. So we actually have this ability now to look quickly and reclassify students based on this information that was a smaller display on the previous slide. So there are 4 criteria of performance that have to be met. One is around the LPAC, and specifically a score of 4 on the LPAC. The second is a basic skills assessment, and this is one of the modifications that we've done this last year. We continue to use our local literacy assessment, which is PAF at K2 and reading inventory at 3.8. But we actually now also can refer to CASP for performance. So we can look at either or to determine if a student has met the criteria for the basic skills assessment. And then regarding teacher input, we actually have 2 indicators also there that have, we used to rely almost exclusively on the ELA grades on the students' report cards. And now actually we do both. We look at grades, we also look at teacher input. There's an input form that we use to ask teachers about student performance. And so it really is driven left to right. If we have a student who scored a 4 on the LPAC, then we look at what's the opportunity on the basic skills assessment. And then finally, what's the opportunity on the teacher input to see if a student should be reclassified. If we think they are based on those criteria, then the last step is that, of course, we go to the families and we say, we're about to reclassify your student. This will be a shift in the kind of supports that they receive. Do you support this? And, I think in my several years here in the district, we've only had a handful of parents that said, no, I actually want my student to remain an English learner. Most parents, of course, support that reclassification. So going on to the actual data, you can see here the data on 2022, 23, which is the sort of gold color compared to the emerging year that we're having right now of 2023-24, which basically began with the reclassification we did this summer and will continue, of course, across the rest of the year. So this is where we are at this moment. And you can see some of the variances between last year and this year by grade level. And then another way to look at it is the number and percent of students that we are reclassifying each year. And we've reported on this to you before. We had a a remarkable increase in reclassification last year based on the adjustments we were making and the fact that we were looking at the data more frequently. And then this is where we're at this point this year in 2023-24. So again, you know, we're already this year almost doubling the reclassification numbers that we, except for last year, that we saw previous to last year. So this is encouraging both in, you know, that means our instruction is getting traction, students are accelerating their learning, and also we just have a better process for recognizing those students and moving them forward as they show the readiness to. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Chambliss, Assistant Superintendent Chambliss. Any board clarifying questions?
Reclassification process. So once students have been reclassified and are no longer English language learners, do we follow up with them down the road to make sure that they're like still on track? Because, you know, as you noted with some of these, there is like some backsliding sometimes. So just curious about that.
We implemented a revised process actually right at the end of the COVID process, but yes, there is. I did not mention it for our initially fluent students. There's a similar, it's through our elevation platform where we ask teachers to give us an update on how they see the performance of those students who have just recently reclassified.
Okay, great, thank you.
I had, oh, do you have something? I had a question about just kind of how our rates compare to just like other districts and what kind of the ideal state is in terms of how many, both in terms of reclassification, but then just how many students are identified as English, you know, learners.
Great question. I don't have the data with me right now, but actually I'd be happy to follow up with you. Each district does have a slightly different criteria and how they reclassify students. So sometimes it's a little difficult to compare, but I'd be happy to pull some data from roughly similar districts and we could take a look at it together.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Also interesting that there is so much difference in terms of how, yeah, okay. Now we're moving into discussion. So that was my clarifying question. Any other clarifying questions? In-person comment. Take public comment, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, President Watkins. I'll be calling on speakers during public comment in random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hands, and speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time has expired, we will move to the next speaker. One speaker at this time, Marcella McCullum. Just one moment. Okay, please go ahead.
If Marcella's talking, we can't hear her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry,
I had.
Joe, we can't hear her.
I'm going to keep talking, and then the boardroom can tell me when they can hear me.
We can hear you now. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. I think I had more of a question I'm hoping could be answered rather than a comment. I know that Assistant Superintendent Chambliss mentioned that we have added more reclassification cycles. I'm curious what the trend was in the past versus what it is now, because the data that we're receiving shows 2019, 2020. And so I'm curious if the 2019, 2020 data was missing another cycle of that where we might have engaged in reclassification. And if that's the case, I would love to know if we have data on the 2018, 2019 year, so the year prior to COVID, to be able to kind of track what reclassification looks like within the district. And then my second question, if it's possible, is how we track our reclassified students long-term. So I know that he mentioned that there is a process where immediately after they've been reclassified, there is a check-in with the teachers. And I'm curious on how the students who are reclassified show up as meeting academic standards as they transition through, as they move kind of along in our program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, President Watkins. That was the last public comment.
Thank you. David, if you wouldn't mind responding to the question around the reclassification cycles, and then in terms of the tracking, if you have any comments on that piece as well. And then I was thinking, it was making me reflect a little bit on the tracking that we've done with preschool and kind of how kids are doing long term. It could be interesting to do some similar kind of analysis in terms of our students that are reclassified and kind of what that trajectory looks like. So I would love to see that in the future. But if you have anything to add on other questions from Marcella before we turn it over, that'd be great.
2018-19 data, I don't have it at my fingertips, but we could look at that. And I can only speak generally about the tracking over time that occurs for reclassified students. The data, generally speaking, is that they're one of our highest performing groups academically, but I can pull more specific data that would speak to that better.
So if you can just turn down the audio on the TV again, please. We're getting an echo again. Okay, opening up to the board for discussion. Comments?
Mine is more of a question. I didn't know that it really fit in with the clarifying question. It was more of a question that required a little bit more thought. So my question is a little bit in line with Marcella's comment. It was more about how do we ensure that the students that we're reclassifying are successful in getting the support that they need? And is there ever a thought about, like, could you reclassify too many students? Because when I look at this chart, 2023, 2024, I feel like we just got started and we're already almost to where 2022, 2023 is. And so, like, are we ever like going too fast or reclassifying too many? That's my question. And how do we make sure everybody is successful in getting the support they need?
That we will not exceed in reclassification last year's number, only because we know that there are, I think, another 30 to 35 students who scored a 4 on the LPAC. And until we get to the spring and retake the LPAC again, that's the only group of students that didn't meet the other criteria. So, and in any case, I think if we have students who are scoring a 4 on the LPAC and also doing well on these other assessments, it's very difficult to think that we're rushing them because they're really at a stage of development that what we're really working on is actually students who are ready, but we're still thinking of them as English learners and providing supports that way. And at the elementary level, it may not have as great of impact, but certainly once you hit middle school and you start shaping access to electives and to things like that, and then once we haven't reclassified by high school, it greatly shapes their high school career. So the importance of getting students moving forward in this is really paramount. But I do hear the questions about can we get some data to see that there isn't any backsliding, for example, that we're not aware of.
A quick comment to respond to that is that sometimes, just from my own experience, when kids enroll with the district, they're asked, what language they speak at home, et cetera. And I think that goes into the assessments. And so a child may be, like, for example, in my own family, we noted that they spoke a different language at home, and even though we speak both, and so my child was classified as an English learner, even though, like, academically, that was not really like the focus of her learning. And so I think that some of the children are classified that way, but in reality, like, they are not functionally English learners.
I have a question regarding the classification of English learner. Once they are identified as English learners through acknowledging that they speak another language at home, but it's not their primary language, are a family able to opt out of being classified as an English learner, being that they are automatically put into an English learner category?
Answer that. That yes, they can. It actually, but it's very important that suggestion come from the family itself. There's actually some really explicit guidance from the CDE that suggestion cannot come from staff or the school district, because it might suggest that we are steering students out of needed supports in a way that would not be equity focused. But yes, parents can request that. We are very careful to have a meeting with them and really go through the data that we have, because it's very natural to confuse functional literacy with academic literacy. And many students that present as functionally strong English speakers, but actually academic English is not a strength for them. So we really try to sit and go through that. But fundamentally, if a parent wants that, they can have their student moved out of EL status. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, David, for the update here, and, for continue to bring us so much rich data that allows us to have these really meaningful conversations, and that demonstrates kind of the impact of some of the work that we're doing overall, and the work not that we're doing, that is happening in the classroom, it's happening in the classrooms daily. And so just, echoing what I said at the last meeting, just, really a great appreciation for all of our teachers and staff. I know, there's a lot of demands and a lot of shifts and a lot of things that are being asked. And so really appreciate all the work that's going into this. It's clearly having an impact on our kids, particularly kids that, we historically haven't served as well as we want to. And so continuing to see these trends moving in this direction is just, that's why we're here. And I know it's why all of you, come to work with our kids every day. So thank you. All righty. We are moving on to update on special ed.
Good evening, everyone. Superintendent Ochoa and school board members. I am here tonight with our update. I also have our assistant.
Sorry, Heather, hold on one sec.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit louder on the TV, Joe. Thank you.
Okay, Heather, go ahead.
Okay. I am sharing my screen now. Hopefully I do this correctly. Are you able to see the special education update?
See and hear. Awesome.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So again, good evening, school board and Superintendent Ochoa. I'm here tonight. Also joining me is Assistant Director Casey St. John, and she will be available to help me answer any questions that you may have later. I'd like to start with our, let's see, There we go. I'd like to start with just our executive summary. We'll be talking about program updates, a data review, fiscal updates, staffing, community partnerships, and we're finishing with our CDAC report. And Amy Fickenshire, our CDAC president, is also here this evening, and she will be sharing that section. I wanted to start with our current school complexes and locations of programs. As you know, we added 3 new programs this year. 2 of them are the therapeutic classes, and 1 is a K2 mild mod SDC at Highlands Elementary School. Also, if you remember years back, we have developed far more opportunities for students in all of the complexes, so it's much more balanced than it was in the past. And so that students who live in any complex mostly have access to a class that suits them within their own complex. And they don't have to go quite as far or across town to be served. Okay, in June and in August, we held professional development for all staff. So teachers from TK through 5th grade participated in this particular session on inclusion. We had a separate session for middle school teachers, but this group was bigger, so I wanted to share this data with you. So 2 important questions were asked at the end. One was, as a result of participating in this workshop, I am better prepared to support all students in inclusive, diverse classrooms. We had a very large number of teachers strongly agree and agree, with a small number of disagree. And again, the second question was, as a result of participating in this lesson, I better understand the role adult mindsets play in student outcomes. And we had even more on that one. So we had 146 respondents and 2 disagreements to that one. So this was encouraging. The purpose of the professional development in the summer was to what I call the mindset kickoff. In order for us to accomplish the goals of the Inclusion Task Force and our vision and mission, we need to help our teachers adjust their mindsets and in some cases embrace them even further so that we can move forward with that practice of actually including students in all settings. And so this was a priority for us over the summer. And again, this was received by all teachers, not only special education teachers. So general education also received it. I also have a slide with the August data. Again, these are different people. So these are a different 124 people. And again, we had a very nice turnout of strongly agree and agree. Of course, there's a few people who disagreed with the same 2 questions that I shared from June. And you can see the data on both of those questions. So it was encouraging that the gen ed teachers who participated in these sessions were able to begin the mindset kickoff work that we need to have in place for inclusion to be successful. Also, continuing with professional development, on October 9th, when we get back from our break, we will have several offerings for our teachers. The first one is de-escalation management training. You can see the audience is very broad there. And this will be presented by our San Mateo-Foster City District BCBAs. There's a training for de-escalation management that is official called safety care. And so this is not official safety care. This is sort of a summarized version to be accessible to all different groups. Safety care itself is more of a regiment. It has rules, and I equate it to CPR training, where there's a certain number of hours you must attend and certain tasks you must pass. So this is a broader training for de-escalation management. Then we'll have an inclusion continuation of the conversation we started in the summer, presented by Sam Drazen from Changing Perspectives. And this will take the work that they started in the summer and go a little deeper in inclusion for all TK through 5 general and special education teachers. And we'll also have an offering for our middle school RSP and SDC teachers in Lexia, which is a reading intervention training. And the Lexia trainers will be conducting that for them. An update on our international recruitment support. So as you know, we have added 14 teachers and 19 paraprofessionals. through our international hiring efforts. These are the offerings of training that they have received and some of the things that we've put in place to support them. Most notably, we have a dedicated 1.0 full-time employee who is dedicated to the induction and coaching for these 14 teachers. That's her sole role, and she is not assigned to any other duties other than the induction and coaching for them. Also, we partnered with Nexus in the recruitment efforts. They are continuing their ongoing professional development with these teachers. It is targeted around their individual needs and then also the legal parts of IEPs and case management and just professionalism in general. We also invited Karen Breslow, who's one of the directors from our SELPA, to conduct a 2-day summer workshop before school started, focused on compliance and how to develop IEPs in the state of California, most specifically. Also, our special education administrative professional development. So we have consistent support from our assigned complex coordinators who are on site and visiting their classrooms regularly. Additionally, all of our teachers, fortunately, were here in time to be able to participate in the August professional development menu. So they were able to receive all of the professional development that the rest of our teachers received in August. And also, we are carrying out the official safety care de-escalation management. So this is the real one where you get the certificate of behavior support training and operating from a least restrictive support lens. And that is this fall of 2023. Okay, we have some new programs. I wanted to describe them for you. What our first new program is the 2 therapeutic learning centers. The staff consists of a counselor, a psychologist, an ed specialist, or you may also refer to it as a resource teacher, paraeducators, general education teacher, and a BCBA on call. We have 2 locations. There's one at the 3rd through 5th grade at Brewer Island and a 6th through 8th grade at Bowditch Middle School. The design is that students have assigned general education classes and access to the TLC space and support as needed. The counselor and the psychologist rotate between the 2 programs. Okay, and so just some highlights of that. This is a unique opportunity that our district is taking to provide a level of care previously not available for our students within our district. It is a new program and it is in the early pilot stages. And our team is conducting constant cycles of inquiry to refine response skills of the team and develop systems within larger campuses. It is supported by the group above, but also the coordinators, the program specialists for induction, the behavior team, and then site and department administration. And right now we have, and actually this has been updated just yesterday, so my slide might be slightly off, but we had 5 students in the 3-5 program and 4 students in the 6-8 program. As you know, placements change often, and so I believe we now have 4 in the 3-5 program and 4 in the 6-8 program. Okay, the other new program we added this year, which was very exciting, and it gave us an opportunity for students in the Burrell complex, was the K2 Mild Mod SDC at Highlands. The staff is an education specialist and paraeducators, and it's located at Highlands. The design is a special day class, and students are included in general education classes for their IEPs. We expanded this SDC offering for our youngest elementary students and provided this new location, which is very exciting. We currently have 7 students in this class. Okay, and one of our biggest efforts, as you know, after the conclusion of the Inclusion Task Force's report to you last year, is to carry out year 1 goals for inclusion. So these are the areas that we have been working on so far this year. We were notified in August that Supporting Inclusive Practices, which is a CDE funded program, and it's designed to support districts in California with inclusion and equity. We were announced that we have been identified as a grantee. So we have access to their support at no cost, and they are working alongside our department and our equity task force and our inclusion task force to layer on supports in pushing our inclusion work forward. Also, SIP and the special ed department and Changing Perspectives and the Inclusion Task Force are collaborating to work on these goals. And this is specifically designed around the 2 target schools, which are George Hall and Foster City School. The district also increased the number of preschools in the general education preschool classes. Students who were previously attending the SDC at Lead were transitioned into general education preschool classes in their neighborhoods. And we added an inclusion opportunities by placing an SDC at Turnbull, where simultaneous general education classes exist. So those students have an opportunity to play with their gen ed peers and attend school with them. We also recruited for inclusion TOSAs. Hiring decisions were not made. The district plans to recruit beginning in January of 24. Also back to SIP, they're assisting us in designing listening sessions at our community school meetings. These empathy interviews will assist both the community schools and the district in understanding parent perspectives in regards to inclusion. And this collaboration and support aligns our strategic plan, the equity task force, and the inclusion task force's vision and goals. I have more about this later in our presentation, as we actually had another listening session last night at San Mateo Park School. So I will be talking about that shortly. We are also holding listening sessions at the 2 inclusion sites, George Hall and Foster City School. And all of this data will be used as baseline data for us in measuring our progress towards our year 1 goals. As you recall, we had a resolution to prioritize diverse learners last year. Part of that was doing a board policy review and these listening sessions. So our department has been working with a consultant, Susan Warner, on completing an initial analysis of current board policy. We are planning to have a collaborative team of teachers, classified employees, and administration to review the draft proposed policy changes that we've been working on with Ms. Warner. And we'll also review those with the Equity Task Force, who will receive the edited proposed policies in November for potential board review in January. And as I mentioned before, we have listening sessions as part of that resolution. And I will mention that later. We have already had 1 listening session with CDAC. It was a virtual one. And then we had 2 more in person, one on the 20th at Fiesta Gardens and one last night at San Mateo Park. And then we have 2 more proposed or scheduled meetings for the target schools. These will also be in person at George Hall and Foster City. And I believe we're changing the Foster City date to 19th if you're interested in attending. And I will correct that. Okay, so these are some photos from our listening sessions. I wanted to share these. They were very well attended. At Fiesta Gardens, we had 110 participants. And at San Mateo Park, we had 80 families show up. These were done in conjunction with the community meetings, community school meetings. And this collaboration has provided an excellent platform for us to collect information in a really close, kind of intimate way, to have conversations with families and learn what they understand about inclusion, what they're hoping to see more inclusive practices look like in their schools moving forward. And I think everyone that participated, and I appreciate the support of Jeanette Ramirez and Christian Rubalcaba and my whole team, all of my coordinators and assistant director, Casey St. John, all assisted in participating and listening. We had a huge turnout of support of translators and also parents that are willing to help out. So it was very successful. And we are starting to collect just some amazing data. It's been very encouraging and just a really kind of my favorite thing that I've been able to be part of this year. Okay, and some data for you. I've compiled some data for ELA. This is the CASP data from 2019, which is pre-pandemic, then 22 and 23 respectively. You can see that we have the last 2 years have been pretty stable. However, we are seeing a nice increase from 2019 across the board in all of the categories. And you'll notice, especially on the right side here, in the not met category has gotten smaller significantly. So that's very encouraging. And I want to share the math data with you as well. Here's our math. Again, 19, 22, and 23. And we're seeing a similar pattern with 22 and 23 being relatively stable. There's a little movement you can see some increases in met and exceeds, and as well, yeah, and then overall just a decrease in those who have not met their standards. And then one more piece of data for you. This is, I believe it was requested last time when I spoke with you, so I wanted to share this. These are by demographics. And again, I don't have the demographics for 19, but I included it in the overall on the slide. And I did want to show the demographics for 22 and 23, which are the blue and yellow. Okay. So this is our current actuals for non-public schools. This is a reduction from last year. We have 31 students currently attending non-public schools who live within our district boundaries. And this, we did a little study on our paraeducators, not little, it was actually very in-depth. The district spent quite a long time doing a heavy duty lift on examining where all of our paraeducators are and where we had people in classrooms where we maybe didn't need them and where we needed to shift them. So we're also working very hard to recruit internally so that we have more of our own employees working for us. So last year we had 75 paraeducators that were district staff. This year we have 98. So we have been able to recruit and hire significantly more, and we continue to do so. We're also trying to reduce the number of employees that we hire through contracts. So we've reduced 20 contracts with Maxim, and all of the rest we've reduced. We've eliminated 2 of our agency partners completely. So we're no longer using TLC or 360 this year. And we are continuing to try to grow our internal district staff numbers. Last year at this time, or at the end of the year, we had 205 district total paraeducators. Right now we have 193. Okay, I included this as a vacancy, even though we technically don't have any vacancies. We are staffed in speech pathologists. However, some of them are virtual and some are agency. And so we continue to post this on EdJoin in the hopes of recruiting and hiring our own internal speech pathologists. All of our other positions are filled at this time. Some community partnerships that we have right now are Special Olympics and Best Buddies. I wanted to share, this is really fun and exciting. We've never done this before. We are doing a co-hosted Special Olympics this year with Burlingame and Hillsborough school districts. The first session will be October 26th. It's going to be soccer. It's being hosted at Burlingame Intermediate School. And this is brand new to us and we've never done it before. All 3 districts agreed that we would start with our middle school students who are in special day classes. And so they will be invited. Transportation and lunch will be taken care of for everyone. And it happens during the school day. So it's treated somewhat like a field trip. And then there will be 2 more sessions, I think one in the winter and one in the spring. And Hillsborough and San Mateo-Foster City will respectively host 2 more events to be decided. Also, we're continuing to develop our Best Buddies programs, and the Ed Foundation is assisting with helping us find some private donors for additional financial support. We have 5 chapters, Foster City School and the 4 comprehensive middle schools. These are designed for students in general education and special education to have opportunities to play and form relationships with each other, and materials are provided. So we provide games, activities, field trips, snacks, and supervision, of course. So that is underway at those 5 schools, and we hope to grow that next year. And I wanted to share just some pictures of our first day of school. I realize that feels like a long time ago now, but I haven't talked to you since before the summer. So this was our first day of school. I have photos from many different campuses, and we started fully staffed, which is so encouraging. And everybody was just fresh and bright and ready for learning. And then I'd like to invite Amy Fickenshire to join us for our CDAC update.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm in a hotel lobby, so apologies if there's funny background noise happening. So thank you so much for having me. As Heather mentioned, I'm Amy Fickenshire, and I am the chairperson of the Special Education District Advisory Committee. So I'm happy to be here tonight to tell you a little bit about what we've done and what we will be doing this year. We had our first meeting on the 19th, just sort of a back to school, getting to know the special education department kind of meeting and getting to know CDAC, and then the listening session. So it was really nice to be able to have that opportunity to provide feedback. And I know a lot of parents and families were grateful and appreciated the opportunity to be able to give some really specific feedback. Here are our future meetings for this school year. Per the last few years, as we've been doing, all meetings have simultaneous Spanish translation and are recorded and posted to our website. Here is a bit.ly link for anybody who wants to go check it out. And then both last year and this year, we've decided to focus on community education presentations. And so this fall, we surveyed our community regarding topics of interest. And our priority was to reach several different stakeholder groups. And we had responses from parents, community members, teachers, staff, related service providers, and a lot of response, which was great. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The survey was open for about 2 weeks, and it was sent out a couple different ways, distributed through the district weekly newsletter, posted to the website, and a text message push to families of students who are receiving special education services. It was sent out both in English and Spanish. When I sent in these slides, we had 153 respondents, but we actually ended up more with like 180, just under 200. So that's a great turnout for us. And here are some of the things that the community is most interested in presentations and more information on. Community resources for students with diverse learning and developmental needs, emotional regulation and sensory integration, disability-specific trainings. For example, a few years ago, we did a training on dyslexia. Some of the other things we had in the survey were ADHD or autism, inclusion and universal design for learning, and understanding services in our district and IEP basics. I've been in touch with some community resource service providers, such as the Family Resource Center, and I think we should be able to do hopefully some partnering with them to share resources, but they already have a lot of great presentations on their calendar. So just making sure we get that information out to our families. They already have things planned for several of these topics, including IEP basics and some of those disability specific trainings. And then just some other topics of note from the survey. Most years we have people write in that they would like more information about the transitions that happen throughout schooling. So preschool to kindergarten, 5th grade to 6th grade, and 8th grade to 9th grade. We had both parents and staff ask for more information about school safety. And we had some staff that requested additional training on how to use SAFE, IEP writing, and working with students in our new therapeutic programs. So we're always thrilled to have this much engagement at the beginning of the school year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to finding some great speakers to meet some of these needs. And I'm available for some questions as well if anybody has any. So thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you, Amy. And this brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. So I will turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Amy, for joining and giving an update as well. Awesome. Opening it up to the board for clarifying questions.
I had one. Anyone else can go while I'm going.
The Therapeutic Learning Center program, you mentioned that it's a unique opportunity and it's a new program. how did that come about? Was it something that the county brought to us, or is it something that we just brought upon ourselves? I think I missed how
Yeah,
we.
I can answer that. Also, I see double of me. I'm not sure why that's
Oh, I
happening.
cannot hear you.
But anyway, hopefully you only hear one of me. My twin is there. Yeah, so in analysis of how we care for students and what we're able to do within our own district, we were noticing trends of large numbers of students that we would end up having to move to outside placements like non-public schools. And because of that, we thought, we have the resources here to offer another option for students who are maybe struggling within their current settings for a variety of reasons. And so we decided to add these programs. They don't serve as a complete replacement for a non-public placement. There are still students who will require that level of care, but it offers a place for some students to be served within our classroom settings within our district. And then for others, it might be like a first step in seeing, evaluating their needs and seeing if they need a more restrictive setting. So we noticed a need for this coming up over the last few years, where we're noticing larger numbers of students with kind of therapeutic type concerns, and we wanted to be able to offer that ourselves. So that's kind of where it came from. Again, it is like you mentioned, it is a brand new program. Like we didn't move this from another site. It wasn't like a pre-existing team that we, for example, this year we moved one of the Abbott Mod Severe classes to Burrell. So that class was already established and running and hired for. So this one was literally brand new. We hired a new teacher, a new counselor. Even the students weren't identified because the way IEPs work, students are identified as the need arises. So it's not like we had a bunch of kids ready to roll and just come on over. We had to determine when it was appropriate through the IEP process and where the student placement would be.
Okay, found my question. The question I had was about the CASP results, and if you could briefly talk about how those compare to other districts of similar size. I mean, I recognize, of course, that when students have different learning, different abilities, they, it's going to be hard to compare them to the general education population, but it would be helpful if
I
we
would
understood, are we
I would like to
about as
collect
well
that
as other
information.
comparable districts. That would be great.
No, I think you're right. It is true that especially within special education, every single case is unique and individualized. I would like to do a little research on that and get comparable district data for you to compare. So I don't have it off the top of my head.
I was wondering, Heather, if you could share a little bit about the listening sessions that you all have had in collaboration with the community schools meetings, and just, the folks that are coming to those meetings. Is it predominantly kind of community schools driven, and you are there to provide an opportunity to reflect on kind of inclusion in some of the special ed initiatives? Is it joint outreach where you're specifically reaching out to families that have students with special needs? What does that sort of process look like in terms of outreach and attendance?
So yeah, because we have some different types of listening sessions. So sorry.
No, we can.
No? Can you hear me?
Good. Thanks. I think.
Okay. Because we have kind of two types of listening sessions going on. The community school ones, most of the outreach has been through the community school process because we want to keep that group intact and involved in the development of their schools. However, we also at the same time really wanted to make sure that people who are developing these new schools and telling us what they need had an opportunity to share with us what their experiences are, what they understand about inclusion. And what we found with the ones that have happened so far is that the conversation veered. So inclusion can be about many different things. It may not only be for special education. So it could also be about equity or English learners. I mean, there's many different categories it could fall into. We let the conversations kind of evolve organically. So as we were talking to families, if parts of the questions came up that were interesting and important to them, we let that go, and we wanted to hear that. So the outreach, we advertise these to everyone, but I think the intentional outreach for those first two groups was more around the community schools. The focus schools, well, and then the outreach for CDAC, of course, was our internal CDAC communication with the families within CDAC and within the special education department. And then for George Hall and Foster City, that outreach will be, again, more special education focused. And because those are two focus schools and they both have a large number of special education programs, so I anticipate we'll get some feedback from a sort of a different interested party there.
Thanks so much for sharing about that. One other question is around, so you talked a little bit about, I'm just going back to the slide, some of kind of the follow-up from some of the inclusion, the targeted work. And I know I was just looking back at kind of some of the things that were going to happen for George Hall and Foster City specifically as sort of like the two target sites. And I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more in addition to the listening sessions, kind of what some of the targeted support that's happening at those sites, particularly since the inclusion TOSAs was intended to be like a part of like kind of some of the targeted support that hasn't happened as of yet. So what does that kind of look like as the target schools?
Right,
what does support look like?
Great. So one of the things that's been very lucky for our district is becoming a grantee from SIP. And so SIP and Sam Drazen from Changing Perspectives, who we also are partnering with, they are kind of layering on their support for the principals. And what those two schools are working on right now, and they have an intense schedule of work going on. I can get more specific information for the board if they'd like to see it. But they're working on developing site-specific plans, which is really important because there are things that we as an inclusion task force, we have our goals, we have our ideas, but certain more specific things we can't determine for an individual site because like environmentally, not every site is exactly the same. And academically, not every site is the same. And there, we have Montessori programs, we have bilingual programs, we have K-8s, we've got, all sorts of different things to offer. So each school has their own sort of flavor. And so they have developed with the help of SIP and SAM site leadership teams, and they're driving that work internally. They're also doing parent ed nights. They're doing staff education around inclusion. And they're going to be holding some like other kinds of engagement opportunities in addition to the listening sessions. I also have to remember listening sessions will be repeated. So this is only baseline data. We're going to do them again later in the year. So we have some comparable data to see if we've grown. The questions are simple and they're designed around understanding people's their understanding of what inclusion is, and then also understanding what they feel barriers might be, and then some suggestions of what they can offer as to how we could improve. So that will have a good baseline information to work with when we're done with this first round.
Sorry, I said I had two questions. I have one more. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about some of the Changing Perspectives work and kind of what that's entailed and how it's been received.
Yeah. So Sam is wonderful, and he actually works closely with SIP with many districts in the state of California. So he's familiar with many of the people that we're partnering with. His work is largely centered around, like I referred to before, like the mindset shift and helping people understand what needs to happen in a setting for it to be successful. He does a lot of work with helping people understand biases, preconceived notions, and also things like the difference between empathy and sympathy, because we hear that a lot. in special education. We get a lot of, people who meaning well may be applying sympathy instead of empathy. So like saying things like, I feel so sorry for this, student, they're not getting what they need, instead of thinking through the lens of like understanding how it feels to be that student and how they feel when they're, and building a sense of belonging. I think when I think of Sam, I think of the word belonging. And so Sam, he's driven to create a sense of belonging for students everywhere. And he helps families with that as well. So he can help. That's why we're doing the parent ed nights as well as staff trainings.
Got it. Thank you. Any other board clarifying questions? We will now move on to public comment. Any in-person public comment? All right, Joe, if you could open up Zoom audience for public comment.
Yes, thank you, President Watkins. Good evening. I'll be calling on speakers during public comment in random order. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hands, and speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time has expired, we will move to the next speaker.
Joe, we can't hear you.
Oh.
The Zoom audience could hear you because we could like faintly hear that you were opening public comments. So if you can just turn up the volume.
Okay, sorry about that. Something keeps happening to my microphone. I apologize. Okay, I'm pretty sure the Zoom audience heard me call. But at the moment, there are no public comments at this time.
Thank you. We'll open it up for board discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan, for putting this presentation together. I just have a comment about my visitation and being able to visit the special day classes, and want to make a comment about the high level of care that you continue to oversee happening in the classroom. I want to thank you for that. It's just really enlightening to see the level of care that our scholars are receiving. Thank you. Thank you.
I will second what Trustee Brooks said, as I was also on those visits, and I know that we as a district in all aspects really are continuously learning and improving our outcomes, and so I think it's great that we have a lot of input from the special education community, and that we can hopefully use those going forward.
Thank you, Heather, for the presentation and all of the data here. Appreciate all of this information. I am most curious in this presentation, I think, about the new program, the Therapeutic Learning Centers, mainly because it's new and different. We've received a few emails about this program, and I just want to make sure that everybody's receiving all of the support that they need for this program to be successful, both from teachers and staff in the program as well as students. And so I would be curious to kind of survey all involved, adults and also families, just to make sure that everybody's feeling like this is successful from all angles. I think we've heard a bit from the Brewer Island group. We haven't heard from the Bowditch community. From emails, I haven't seen anything, so I don't know how things are going there, but I would just be curious to hear more from, I think he says 4 students there and some staff there as well. So just be curious to hear more from everyone there. I just want to make sure that it's successful and that everybody feels that they're getting the support that they need. So I would be interested to hear more. But otherwise, thank you for all that you do and that everybody in this program does to make sure that all of our students are getting what they need. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Heather, for the update, the comprehensive update across a variety of areas. I'm really excited about the partnership that's forming with community schools. And you know, I really like what you say about kind of inclusion as a broad umbrella in terms of how varying individuals feel like they are included and like they belong at our schools. And so really opening up with that, knowing that our, you know, students with special needs are a piece of, you know, who we're really thinking about. But, you know, kind of leaving that umbrella open. So I think that that's great. And then also love like the more targeted listening sessions. One piece on the targeted listening sessions that I was thinking about is my assumption is those are in person, et cetera. But I'm just wondering what the outreach might look like for folks that aren't able to attend in person or aren't able to provide feedback in that way. And so, you know, are we planning to put together a survey? Like, I think as much as we can get, as much of a comprehensive view from everyone, folks that might not be naturally inclined to attend a listening session on inclusion. We still want to know how they feel about inclusion at these target sites. And so I think it would be great for us to think about just a way that we could really get as much data back on that as possible. I'm really interested in that piece. So if we could prioritize that sort of outreach, if it wasn't already on the table, that would be great. Love the, you know, just the continued updates about like the programmatic shifts. And, you know, I think it's very related to the inclusion work in terms of how do we provide environments and comprehensive care at school sites. So kids are not being, you know, they're not going to various school sites and needing to kind of find new sense of belonging at each of those sites. So I'm just excited about all those shifts. And, you know, as we think about, you know, I know we've talked about kind of the therapeutic sites and other possibilities for types of programs that we may want to consider in the future. And so I'm really excited for us to, you know, to be piloting that and look forward to continuing to hear updates around how these are going, as, you know, Trustee Proctor said, from a variety of different stakeholders, and just if there are additional ways that, you know, that we can provide support or additional support that's needed, always open to that. I think to that end, I'm wondering, you know I asked the question about what does support look like at our inclusion sites, or our target kind of inclusion sites. And, you know, I think it's great that there's, I'm going to blank on the name and I just closed the presentation. The grant that we got. I mean, I think it's great that there's like targeted principal support, and I think it's great that we have the changing perspectives and all of that, but acknowledging that that's like very different than having a person on site that's providing support to teachers and potentially students like on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm just wondering, in the short term, like, you know, we're in September still, we're talking about reopening those positions in 3 months. Like, what kind of, you know, we're close to then half a year in, like what, by the time we hire somebody, they get onboarded, like all of those things, what kind of support can we offer now to kind of like fulfill that promise that we made around like really providing, having these target sites and them with necessary support. So I'd be really interested in us thinking creatively about what that could look like in the short term. That's more in more parallel to what an inclusion TOSA might support. So is there internal capacity that could be leveraged? I'm not sure what exactly the solutions would be there. Obviously, you all would be better positioned to think about what that might look like. But to me, it feels like January, if this is really like a target site and inclusion TOSA was like a key recommendation, it feels really important to provide more of that sooner. So that's just kind of like in the vein with support. And yeah, just loving to see the data. Like, I think there's obviously a lot of progress. Like, a lot of the work that's been happening has definitely you know, is supporting our students, you know, similar to what I shared with reclassification presentation, right? Like to see some of our target high priority groups and to see the progress that's being made really shows the impacts of all the work that's happening again on the ground day to day. And so just really grateful for that. Also really appreciate the PD data. I know that like in the past, we've heard a lot of concern around professional development, inclusion in professional development, right? And just not feeling relevant. And so to see that folks are feeling some movement there and feeling really good about that, I think is really great to see. So I appreciate you sharing that. Like look forward to continuing to see that and to hearing about that. Also really excited about the policy updates. And so looking forward to that and really great to hear that that's going to be brought to Equity Task Force. I know as we thought about kind of reconfiguring the way in which the Equity Task Force was being set up, there was a goal to really ensure that kind of all of the work that was happening under that umbrella would continue to come to the task force and that there would, you know, be some of that kind of policy review. I also think it would be great to, maybe I missed it, but it would be great to share, I think, with CDAC as well and that group of stakeholders as we're thinking about making those adjustments to policies and just to see if there's any additional feedback from that group of folks. I think those were my comments. So again, thank you so much. And looking forward to more updates. Anything from anyone else? All right. We will then move on to 8A, approving the MOU between City of Foster City and our district regarding police engagement and collaboration.
Thank you, President Watkins, members of the board, members of the community. First of all, many thanks to the group that worked. Can you give me a thumbs up? There we go. That worked collaboratively between the San Mateo-Foster City School District Student Services Department, our Assistant Superintendent, Dennis Hills, his Director of Student Services, Dr. Margaret. Okay. His Director of Student Services, Dr. Margaret Heredia. All right. His Director of Student Services, Dr. Margaret Heredia. Thumbs up. Okay. And our Principal on Special Assignment, Dr. Ryan Haven, in working collaboratively with our Coordinator of Communications, Diego Perez. Just very grateful for the leadership that has been shown by the City of Foster City and the Foster City Police Department. I've been doing this for a long time, and I can tell you we are very, very lucky to work with Tracy Avalar. She's a gem. She's really, really experienced, thoughtful, focused. I just can't say enough about my engagement with her through this process. As the board is aware, we brought this to the board and to the community last month. It has been out in the public for 30 days. There has been media coverage related to this resolution as well as board interaction at our last meeting. The overwhelming feedback I've received from members of the staff and from members of the community is support for this memorandum of understanding. I think it represents a really logical and effective step forward in having something memorialized with our police department. So it's my recommendation to the board that this be approved this evening. And with that, I pass it back to the board.
Great. Thank you so much, Superintendent Ochoa. And I just, before we move into clarifying questions and public comment, just wanted to kind of build off of what Superintendent Ochoa said. You know, our board and I wasn't able to be at the last meeting where this was discussed, but our board in I guess 2020, you know, passed the resolution around disrupting the school to prison pipeline, a big part of which was how do we analyze our own internal metrics and really think about how we're contributing to that, right? Starting with the school and the way that we're disciplining our students and the practices that we're employing and making adjustments to our discipline structures and providing training on restorative practices in a variety of other areas. And then, you know, a piece around not having school resource officers in our schools in Foster City or San Mateo. Foster City and San Mateo are different in how that was what that looked like prior to kind of this new memorandum, MOU. Because in Foster City, we didn't have the same kind of setup with school resource officers with the Foster City Police Department that we did in San Mateo. And, you know, there were a lot of people had a lot of varying perspectives about that decision and whether or not that was the right decision and whether or not we had, you know, as there were disciplinary instances that happen and continue to happen, once, you know, students were back in school after that year-long hiatus, based on, you know, because of COVID. You know, there are a lot of varying perspectives. And I think, you know, one thing I just want to kind of echo and appreciate is that I know our relationship with the City of Foster City Police Department has been a strong collaborative partnership throughout all of that. And just really wanting to echo just my appreciation for Chief Avilar and the way in which she's engaged in these conversations over the years and just really, you know, the understanding. And I think what this MOU represents is really what is our role as a district in terms of how we support and serve and discipline if needed students, and that really being our role as a school district. And then what is the role of our police department, both in terms of building relationships with our students and our community members. And then, you know, if there are needs to intervene in, you know, in something that is a crime, what does that look like? And how do we kind of collaborate and ensure that the communication is strong? And so really being able to lay that out in a way that keeps our kids at the core and what they need and what is best for them and what makes them feel safe and supported. And that takes into account the data that we've looked at over the years in terms of what are the things that do and don't do that, both for our students and our families. So I just want to echo just like a lot of appreciation for all of the folks that have been a part of this conversation over the past couple of years that have led us to a place where this is a, you know, MOU that I think, I mean, we'll see tonight, right? But I think that we all feel pretty good about, and just the partnership that has kind of developed over the past couple of years as a result of this. So thank you so much, Chief Avilar and Superintendent Ochoa, and to all of the district staff that have been a part of these conversations to really bring this to fruition. With that, any clarifying questions? Okay, moving on to audience public comments. Joe, if we could take Zoom public comment.
President Watkins. Good evening. I'll be calling on speakers during public comment in random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hands, and the speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time has expired, we will move to the next speaker. President Watkins, there is no public comment at this time.
Great. We'll open it up if the board has any comments, and just to this is up for a vote if not.
I made some comments at the last meeting, but kind of going off of what President Watkins has said about our role as a district, I just want to pull a little bit at a connected thread, which is that discipline issues don't come out of nowhere, right? Like oftentimes this is not the first, like if someone is getting in trouble or they're part of the restorative process, it sometimes is, I would say probably most of the time, is not the first time that they have had issues with either emotional regulation or social interactions with their peers or with staff. And I think that the restorative justice efforts that we're making are preventative, and they're as well as resolving the issue at hand. We're also trying to resolve the sort of overarching issues with the relationships between the people who were involved. We're trying to teach kids how to take responsibility for their actions. We're trying to teach them how to, what are their options if they're feeling a certain way. And so, it's an ongoing learning process, I think, for all of us. And I just want to say that, I'm grateful for everyone's efforts in developing the restorative practices so that we can disrupt the school to prison pipeline. And, I think also recognizing that some kids have way more trauma. They may have, may not see the models for emotional regulation or problem solving in their own family. And so school is one important way that we can show them that there are alternatives. And so just want to, raise that as something that, parents can also, to the extent that they can, like, that's something that they can help support, right? Is to help their children acknowledge their feelings, identify their feelings, talk about feelings, show them alternatives and how to resolve issues. And so I think it's something that, we can all do, because as we know, like, emotional bandwidth and sort of mental resources are a finite resource in our lives. Like, we've all gotten frustrated at some point. And so it's a skill that we all, I think, need to practice.
I will just thank everyone involved for the work on this MOU. I just want to thank everyone at the district and for Chief Avalon and everyone at the Foster City Police Department. I want to also thank President Watkins for your leadership. I know that you have taken a huge leadership role in disrupting the prison the school to prison pipeline, starting a few years ago, and it's continued. I know you've taken a lot of heat for this over the years, and this feels like I think some resolution that probably people have been waiting for, and you've done a lot of work on this, and thank you for all of what you've done. And this feels right, it feels good, and I'm looking forward to continuing this with San Mateo and all of that. So thank you, and great work.
This item is up for a vote.
I'd like to make a motion to pass this MOU.
Brooks for the motion and myself for the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, great. And again, thank you so much to everybody. All right, moving on to 8B, consideration of adoption of a resolution to replace Trustee Chin.
Oh, cue the sad music, folks. As you all know, we received word from our colleague. We received word from our colleague on the board, Kenneth Chin, that he planned to resign effective the end of October. What I have for the board tonight is an item that allows the board to discuss the process, the potential process you all would enact. As superintendent, I do recommend that the board pursue an appointment to the board as opposed to an election. And the reason is financial. Elections are very costly, and this would be a term for assuming the person were to be appointed in the next 90 days or so. It would be an appointment basically from December until the following November, at which point in time the public would have an opportunity to elect somebody from the trustee area. Trustee Chin was elected at large, so the potential candidate could be from any part of the San Mateo-Foster City school district boundaries. But ultimately in the November 24 election, the person would need to be from his specific trustee area. So what's before the board is a resolution drafted by our legal counsel. And the resolution explains the steps that would need to be taken. I've included some placeholder dates, and they're very early in the process. So as a board, you all have this evening to discuss the contents of this proposed resolution so that I can bring it back to you all in October with more specific dates. And that's the intent of bringing this to the board. As you know, we went through this process to appoint Trustee Trin very recently. So the process is fairly similar to that with just a handful of minor changes. And with that, I will turn it over to the board for
Great,
questions.
thank you,
and
Superintendent Ochoa. Any clarifying questions for Superintendent Ochoa, the process? Right, we will move on to public comment, in-person comment. Joe, if you could open up to Zoom audience for public comment, please.
Thank you, President Watkins. Good evening. I'll be calling on speakers during public comment in random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hands, and speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. Once time has expired, we'll move to the next speaker. Pause a moment to wait for public comment. At this time, President Watkins, there are no public comments.
So open it up to the board for discussion. We're not voting on this tonight, so it's just discussion and direction for Superintendent Ochoa.
Just a quick comment that I would prefer for the advertisement to go a little bit closer to the application date. Sometimes it just takes a little while for word to get out. I don't know if there's like a huge cost to that. Hopefully not, but that would be my input on that.
Oh, and I think and the dates here. I think the deadline's really October 30th, and it says that in one sentence, but then in another says November 30th. So I don't know if the comment still stands if it's being advertised between October 2nd and 16th, and then the applications are due on October 30th.
Yeah, I would like push it maybe like a week or something more.
One of the central questions, sorry. Sorry, Joe. One of the central questions, Trustee Trin and members of the board is, your colleague is going to officially resign at the end of the next school board meeting. So we could post the vacancy the next day, run it for 3 weeks, and then close the vacancy, the application period, collect the applications, and then bring them to the board in December. That would make it so that we still have another month where, as a district on our website and through our communications, we can always let folks know that we anticipate this to happen, and that will really drive up interest. So that's just one possibility. You saw on there the deadline date of November 30th. That would be the benefit of doing it then, so that the board would select somebody at the December regular board meeting.
And maybe Superintendent Ochoa can give us like maybe a preview of the things that might be decided during which we might want to have the full board in the next like month or two.
What I'd recommend is that the board consider a special session in order to be able to create transparency and to give members of the public who have an interest to know a little bit more about the process. That's a pretty standard way that districts might pursue something like that. And that would give us an opportunity to really sort of lay everything out with the dates in front of us and ensure that that we get the absolute best preparation for the process, but also so that we get really really strong applicants. And you do all have a special study session coming up on October 12th and a special study session coming up on November 2nd that we could always tack on an hour before or after at either one of those meetings. And that's something that board president and I can schedule and put together.
Any other comments? Right. Superintendent Ochoa, do you have what you need? Moving on to board member statements and requests for future agenda items. I would just like to request that we have an update on the North Central School at a meeting soon, to just get a sense of kind of the progress there and kind of, reflecting a little bit on some of the public comment that we heard earlier and just recognizing that we haven't heard much yet this year. So if that's not already agendized, if we could do that, if other folks are interested, let me just get a read. Yes. Okay. All right. Future meeting dates are listed. And we will now open up for public comment on closed session before we recess to closed session. Any? Okay. Joe, if you could open up the Zoom audience for public comment on closed session items, please.
Yes, thank you, President Watkins. Good evening. Calling on speakers during public comment for closed session items in random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hands. And once time is expired, at this time, President Watkins, there are no public comments.
Thank you so much. All right, we will now recess to closed session. Oh, hold on one sec. We need to be back, Joe. Awesome. Are we still live?
Yes.
Okay, we have a closed session item. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, the facts and circumstances that might result in litigation against the district, which are known to potential plaintiffs, are as follows. CSEA contends the district did not timely enroll certain classified unit members in health benefits for a period of time preceding June 1st, 2023. Okay, we are now recessing to closed session. Thank you, everybody.
Ready, Joe?
All right, can you hear me?
Hear you.
Zoom?
There's 7 attendees left.
Can you hear me? What?
The Zoom is live now.
Hopefully everybody heard me sing. Item number 12A on the closed session agenda, a majority of the board voted 4-0 to approve a compromise agreement in Office of Admin Hearings, case number 202-307-0451, to resolve claims raised against the district in exchange for specified funding for compensatory education for use during the 2023-2024 school year, 2024 summer, and up to and including December 31st, 2024, or until student reaches grade level, whichever is earlier. This was fully unanimous. Item number 12B on the closed session agenda, a majority of the board voted 4-0 to approve a compromise agreement in the Office of Admin Hearings, case number 202-306-0393 to resolve claims raised against the district in exchange for specified funding for compensatory education for use during the 2023-2024 school year, 2024 summer, and up to and including December 31st, 2024. Unanimous. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
And trustee Trin for the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Good night, everybody. Adjourned at 9:04.